Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are back after a small break, and AAT Seminars and Conference Committee is ready to gear you up to nail your next best job opportunity. And we have with us today a lovely gentleman, one of us, a AAT, a past finalist, Niluka Abegunaratne. He is also a member of the ACCA fraternity. He is having a degree, and also Niluka has become a candidate for the CFA third level. If I also speak about his career, Niluka has been a prominent person who has done several seminars in IFRS changes and IFRS related seminars. And he's well valued as a person who has given so much of guidance to syllabus changes of the Chartered Institute of Sri Lanka. Niluka is also from the Canadian chapter, and he is currently residing in Canada. So I believe with this background and from his roots from Sri Lanka, he will be able to guide us on definitely the best way to nail the next job interview. So good evening, Niluka from Sri Lanka, and good morning to you.
Thank you, Buddhi, and thanks for having me. I'm audible, right? Yeah, I hope you can hear me. And thank you all for joining as well. So thanks for that wonderful introduction. So we do have quite a bit to cover today within the next hour or so. So this is about acing your job interview, right? So I will be giving you some tips as well as some background information and some sample answers to some of the most common interview questions. For some, I won't be giving you the answer, given the time constraint, but I'll be giving you the framework of how to come up with your own answer as well, right? So let me share my screen and let's get right into it. All right. So the main tips for a job interview. First and foremost, the first impression is so important, right? Your first impression can have a lasting impact. If you make a bad first impression, it's not that you can't recover from it. It's just that it's an uphill battle from there, right? So what can you do to make a good first impression? Firstly, let's see how to introduce yourself, right? Keep it simple. Just say your name. Like if it's me, I'd say, hi, I'm Niluka. It's nice to meet you and thanks for having me today, right? That's how you should introduce yourself. Keep it simple. And remember, this is very, very important. You must smile. Even if it's a virtual interview, right? I mean, obviously, don't keep smiling, right? Okay, not like a crazy person, but have that smile, okay? Look like a friendly person who someone can approach and have a chat with, right? That smile can take you a long way. So have that, wear that smile with you. And then the third point is that what you wear.
We can see the screen now, Niluka.
Sorry? What is it, Buddhi? You can see the screen, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So what you wear matters a lot, right? Even in a video interview, it is one of the main ways to show that you have taken the opportunity seriously. It's a sign of respect as well, right? On the other hand, towards the employer. So the interviewer will notice what you're wearing, even if they don't say anything, right? So dress nicely, dress professionally. right? That's non-negotiable. It doesn't matter what the usual attire of the company is. Give me a second. All right. Right. So it doesn't matter what the usual attire of the company is. It can be casual, right? And it doesn't matter what the interviewer is wearing. He might be wearing a t-shirt and jeans, right? That's not relevant. You have to be dressed nicely. For boys, obviously a shirt, a tie, and a blazer. And even girls, you can wear a blazer, right? You can't go wrong with a blazer. I know in Sri Lanka, it's not mandatory to wear a blazer per se. But a shirt and the tie is important, right? But if you're going for interviews abroad, even in the Middle East or European countries, Canada, Australia, you have to wear the blazer, right? So important, dress professionally, comb your hair nicely, and that attire will give an increased level of confidence as well, right? So dress up, and that makes a huge difference, right? A huge difference. All right. So the next point, be confident and interested, right? Interviewers don't like people who are anxious. I mean, obviously you have some nerves down you, right? That's a given. But you can't show that, right? And don't be boring as well, right? Interviewers tend to look for confidence, and you appearing interested and engaged will make them like you, right? Like, for example, I'll give you an example, right? Take these two examples. What if you say, I am enrolled in the Chartered Accountancy program and I have completed AAT. Or you can say, I am enrolled in the Chartered Accountancy program and I have completed AAT, right? You see the two differences. So many people speak like the first example, right? That might be how they usually speak, but that sounds as if you're unsure of what you're saying and you're lacking that confidence. And also, I don't know if you noticed my body language, right? In the two examples, the body language is also vital. So dial in your body language, right? Have your shoulders back, make eye contact, right? Look at them in the eye. If your body language is closed, right? No eye contact, you're not looking at them. And then you're always fidgeting your hands. Those are the worst signs of nerves, right? So either keep your hands folded in front of you, or you can use it to do your gestures. Don't overdo it, right? But use it to a reasonable amount. Like, I personally use my hands a lot, right? As you can see. And also, like, don't be touching your hair like this, right? Touching things on the table. That's common sense. Okay, I'm just making a few points. So make your body language represent the best version of you, right? And that's very important. But at the same time, remember, don't be like overconfident as well, right? Don't go and say you can't find anyone else out there like me, right? Yes, you are there to sell yourself, but that sounds too much, right? It goes from being confident to being cocky, right? So don't be overconfident as well, but be confident, right? Up to a certain level, right? And also, the next point, to make a great first impression, it's important that you have energy and positivity in your voice, right? That's very important, and you have to maintain that throughout the interview as well, that energy and positivity. And the other point is that do not say, I need this job, right? Don't focus on what you need. Focus on the value you can give to the company. I mean, it can be a situation where you are desperate to get that job, but don't say that, I would do anything for this role, right? instead, you can translate that into passion and say it would be a dream to work here. I'm very interested in your company, right? You see the difference? And also have a nice file, right? Have your resume and your cover letter printed out, have all your documents, service letters, right? Put it nicely in a file, and that shows that you are organized as well. And also ending. Remember, the ending is as important as the beginning, right? The two ends. End the interview well, right? Remember, that's what the interviewer will see last, right? And that's what he or she will remember the most. So at the end, you can say something nice, right? For example, like you can say you answered all of my questions. Thank you. And based on what you said about the, let's say, audit engagements and clients you deal with, I'm excited to dive into that challenge, right? And I'm looking forward to bringing my insights into your team and adding value to the audit engagement. You can say something like that. So be specific, sound passionate, and show competence, right? And also remember to say thank you so much for meeting me. I'm excited about your company and the possibility of working here, right? Saying that is so effective. And you can end on a high note irrespective of how the interview went. All right, so those are the main points to keep in your mind when going for an interview, right? These will really help you. Let's move on to some of the most common interview questions and how you should approach them, right? So these are the main sections of an interview. The first section will be getting to know you, and we'll be discussing what type of questions you'll get under this section, and then behavioral questions, technical questions or technical assessment, and then at the end, questions for the interviewer. All right. So getting to know you. So in this part, like at the very beginning, they will ask questions like, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your CV. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Why should we hire you, right? They want to get to know what type of a person you are and why you are applying for that role, right? And whether you can bring in value to the company and whether they can also give you the exposure that you require. They want to understand that, right? Let's start. I'll go through some of these questions and give you all sample answers for some. Unfortunately, given the time, I don't have can you see my slides? There's a question saying cannot see the slides.
Yes, it is visible to us.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, so unfortunately, given the time, I won't have time to go through all these questions in detail, but the most common ones I'll be going through. The very first question, tell me about yourself, or walk me through your CV. This is the most common interview question, right? Now they have already gone through your CV. The reason why the interviewer is asking you this question is to see, obviously, whether you're confident, and they need you to help orient who you are, right? They've already gone through your CV. But at the same time, don't take 15 minutes answering this question, telling your entire life story, right? What they are looking for is a concise summary of who you are as a professional, right? So this is likely to be the first question your interviewer is going to ask you. And as I said, the first impression you make is very, very important. So to answer this question, right, focus on the skills and qualities you have, right? Don't focus on your home life or personal life. Tell them who you are, right? The first part is, tell them who you are, like in one sentence, introduce yourself professionally, right? Usually you should let them know the title of your current role. And then give them a quick highlight reel, right? Share a few points that focus on making you stand out for the role, right? You can usually start with emphasizing what you do in the most recent experience that you have, and then go on to experiences prior to that. And then, of course, like finish off your answer by telling the interviewer why you are there, right? Why you have applied for the job. Right? Say 1 or 2 sentences on why the company and the role you are interviewing for is the best next step for you, basically, right? I mean, companies are not just looking for someone who is just qualified, right? They want someone passionate. So by saying why this is the next best step, it will help them to start seeing you in that role, right? You get what I'm saying? So by doing this, you will appear not just as someone who wants just a job, but who wants that specific job you're applying for, right? Which is a major distinction in a job search. So remember the 3 things: who you are, your highlight reel, and why you are here. So I've given you all an example, given that most of y'all are like, past finalists. I'm assuming y'all are after A-levels, right? School leavers or fresh graduates, most of y'all. So this is something you can say, but of course, you have to come up with your own answer. This is just a guideline answer, right? You can say, I sat for my A-level examination and awaiting results. I'm currently a student at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka and an AAT finalist, specializing in accounting and auditing, right? And throughout my school journey, I have had the privilege of representing my school at these events, right? Beyond my academic achievements, I've also participated in the school hockey team, earning school colors and gaining valuable teamwork experience. Your company and the role you are offering have captured my attention because they align perfectly with my passion and expertise in the financial services space. And I believe my ability to handle high pressure situations and work well with the team have equipped me with the skills necessary to excel in this role, right? That's a perfect answer. That's it. It doesn't have to be longer than that. If you say this, it shows that you're confident and you're passionate about the role, right? So remember, the start is very, very, very important. So have a solid answer lined up, write it down, memorize it if you have to, right? Because if you say, my name is, this, and I'm studying at the Chartered Institute, I'm a past finalist, right? Interview is over even before it began for you, right? It shows that you're not confident, you're not prepared with an answer, right? It's going to be curtains. So have a solid answer prepared. All right, moving on to the next question. This is another very common interview question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? The reason they ask you this question is to see whether the role actually fits with your actual passion, and also to see whether you are a person with a plan, right? So do not go and say that you want to be the CEO, or you want to have the boss's job, right? Also remember, don't say something totally different to the job that you're being interviewed for, right? So how do you approach this type of a question? Again, focus on the value that the role you are going for, right? Focus on the value it will give your career. Show enthusiasm for the opportunity and be realistic, right? Think about where this position will realistically take you in future, right? Focus on making a name for yourself at the company as being the go-to person for some skill. And also a drive to learn and improve these skills that are emphasized in the job description, show your desire to mentor others, right? So this is the framework you have to go in, right? Things to keep in mind, what to mention and what not to mention. Based on those, I've given you all a sample answer again, right? In the next 5 years, my primary goal is to secure and excel in this trainee position. During the first year, I aim to thoroughly understand my role and the company's requirements. The following years, I envision establishing myself as the go-to person for technical auditing and accounting matters within the organization. Looking ahead, I'm particularly focused on mentorship, which is a passion of mine. And then over the next 2 to 3 years at your company, I aspire to build my credibility and expertise. As I continue to grow professionally, I hope to contribute to the development of others entering the firm by providing valuable mentorship, right? That's a perfect answer. I mean, that might sound like a lot to say, but that's how you should approach this question. All right, moving on to the next one. Again, a very common interview question. What do you know about your company? Or why do you want to join our company? Right? So first, make sure you know what they do and who they do it for. Second, have a strong reason as to why you want to work for the company, right? It could be anything from the reputation they have, the client base they have, or you have heard from others how great the company is, or you can say how you feel the company is aligned with your personal values, something like that, right? Find a strong reason, find a genuine reason as to why you want to work there. So go to their website, check out their social media pages, and find a good reason. And then the third point, find out some statistics and information about the company. How big the company is, how much revenue do they make per year, how many countries, what's their presence, right? How many countries are they in? Who's their current CEO, managing partner, right? So do your research and use this question to show that you have done your research about the company. And fourth, find a current piece of information. It could be a recent piece of news or a recent project or acquisition that they have completed, right? It can be anything. And make sure, right, all these findings about the company, about the recent news, about their history, about their revenue, right, and the financials, write these findings down, right? If it's Word, it's fine, or if it's a notebook, fine, right? A full notebook of insights about the company will put you among the top candidates without you even knowing it, right? So read these information about the company before the interview. Obviously, if you're like applying for 5-6 companies at once, it's a little difficult to dig deep to each and every company, but try your best, right? Have this type of information in your head, so when you're asked this question, what do you know about our company, you have the ammunition and you just have to shoot, right? And it shows them, when you tell them about their company, it shows them that you really put in the time to know the company, right? So that makes a huge difference. Okay, so I haven't given a sample answer to this, but you know how to approach this question, right? So moving on. Another common interview question. Why do you want this job? Right? The most important thing to note here is that you need to be specific, right? Don't say things like opportunity to expand the skill set, flexibility or coaching. Those can be for any company, right? You need to be specific, show interest, right? And avoid making your answer about benefits. Like, remote can be remote work. I'm joining for the healthcare, package y'all offer. flexible schedule, or, what is the vacation policy. Avoid saying things like that, right? That has nothing much to do with work. Instead, touch on the company. Discuss what you like about the company, right? Now that you already know about the company, especially like you have done your research, as I told you in the previous question, you have done your research about the company, right? So you can tell them why the company inspires you. And then talk about the role as well. Say why this role is the next best step for your career. So I've given you all, again, a sample answer, a guideline answer. Just, you can say, I'm incredibly excited about this opportunity of joining your team. I'm seeking to learn and grow within financial services sector. Your firm's diverse client base gives me a great opportunity to get hands-on experience in various key sectors, giving me a rapid growth of my knowledge and experience in the field. That's why I'm applying for this role, as it aligns perfectly with my intentions. Right? Simple as that. It immediately touches on why the role is interesting to you, and the intention was very specific. Right? So be specific. Don't give vague answers. The flip side of it. Why should we hire you? Right? So what is the interviewer looking for? Simply, he's asking, right? He's saying, give me some solid reason to hire you so that I can recommend you to the hiring panel, right? Why you are the chosen one. They want to root for you, right? But the mistake candidates do when answering this type of a question is that they try to either describe themselves or list all the great attributes about themselves, right? You may say, you are a hardworking person. I always meet my deadlines. I'm a team player. I'm detail oriented. I'm a self-starter, right? This and that, blah, 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 right? There's no depth to that answer. It's a very generic, empty answer. You need to give examples of displaying these traits, right? I'll be talking about that in detail in the next few slides. But for this question, right, here's what you should say, right? First, review the role. Take the time to reiterate what you know about the role and the challenges basically you'll be facing. Right? This shows that you are business focused. And second, talk about the skills and results you've had that will specifically fit into the role and its challenges. Right? Tell them about specific skills you have that will fit into the role. And third, this is a very effective strategy as well. You can flip the question back and ask them a question like, is this how you see me in this role? Would you add anything? Right? Asking a question back is important to keep the interview feeling like a two-way conversation and not, an interrogation. Right? So based on this framework, you can write your own answer. But, what you can say is, I believe I am the ideal candidate for the audit associate role, given its focus on auditing clients and handling tight deadlines. Successfully balancing client expectations and delivering high quality work within challenging timeframes has been a significant aspect of my previous roles, particularly during crucial periods such as the end of the fiscal year when audit requests intensify. Right? You can say that. And then you can say, having navigated challenging situations with clients and consistently meeting demanding deadlines, I am confident that my past experience have prepared me well for this role. I am eager to use these skills to ensure the success of audit engagements and contribute effectively to your team. And flip the question back. Is that how you see me in this role? Did I miss any key challenges you think I'll be facing? Right? That's a perfect answer. This shows that you have been really paying attention, right? That you want to address and that you want to address specific needs, and that you are also business focused, right? This is how you should approach this type of a question. Reiterate what you know about the role, describe how your experience can add value to the company, and ask if they agree with your perspective. Coming on to another tricky question, right? Why did you leave your last job? This is a very tricky question, and you got to be careful, right? The company wants to know what led you to leave your previous job. If you say something like, I want to do an easier job, or I didn't get along with colleagues, right? Whatever it is, it can make the interviewer think negatively about you, right? Keep it short, right? Don't give too much details, too much, description, unless they ask for it, of course. But at the same time, don't talk negatively about your previous company. If you do that, the interviewer might wonder, right? Will he speak about us the same way if we hire him, right? A genuine question he might have. So, right? So avoid doing, avoid criticizing your previous employer or your coworkers. So, I've given you all like a couple of examples, right? So if your termination was performance related, you could say the company hired me for one role, but the role ended up changing to be something outside my skill set. That's why I'm very interested in your role, because it focuses on my strengths in, right, XYZ areas. That's one way to go about it. Or let's say you have left your job voluntarily, or looking to leave your job voluntarily, right? Avoid saying things like, I am leaving my job because the management is not giving me promotions, right? I'm the most senior among my peers, so I have no choice to leave. I mean, I know that's honest, but it's very negative. And it's also at the same time blaming your previous employer, right? They will also, the interviewer will also wonder as to why you were not promoted, right? Is it something to do with your performance? So how do you approach this diplomatically, right? You can say, I hit a ceiling, right? The second example, I hit a ceiling for the growth in my role, right? When I explored new opportunities within the company, I found out that they were limited. That's why I'm so excited about this role, because I want to learn new skills and gain new experiences, right? That's it. By that, you show that you are, the type of employee who speaks up and who owns their own development. Got it? So keep it short and don't blame your previous employer, right? Approach this question diplomatically. Don't be too honest as well, right? You have to approach this question in a certain way. So these are the questions that, they will ask to get to know you, right? Basically the first part of an interview. And then they will move on to testing behavioral, they will move on to the behavioral type interview questions. So what does this mean? It's something like, saying, tell me about a time when, right? They're asking for examples of things you have done in the past. Yeah, someone is asking for the presentation. I think AAT will send it, right? Could they? Yeah, I think you can reach out to AAT and get the presentation.
Yes, of course. If the presenter approves, we usually do share it. No problem,
No
Nilu.
problem. No problem. I'm fine with that. Yeah. So a behavioral type interview question is, again, something like, tell me about a time you failed. They're asking for examples of things you have done in the past. right? These are like very common behavioral type interview questions. What is your greatest strength? What is your greatest weakness? Tell me about a time you failed, right? Tell me about a difficult coworker you worked with, things like that. So I'm going to tell you a strategy to completely ace your behavioral type interview questions, right? And this strategy is called the Story Toolbox strategy. This, I have personally experienced this. This will give you exceptional results, right? What does this do? To strengthen your answer to any behavioral type interview question, you need to tell a story to be a memorable candidate, right? And remember, these have to be your stories, okay? Don't steal other stories, or don't ask, ChatGPT to give you a story. I know how you all do it these days. It has to be personalized to you, right? Customized to you, something you did, something you experienced, right? So what you need to do is get a pen and paper and get all your notable career moments written down, right? Which is going to be your story toolbox. So take your time and write all these in a document. I need you to write down 2 stories showing your strengths, right? 2 stories showing your weaknesses, a time you saved the day, a story of a time you failed, a story of a time you handled a difficult client, a story of a time you handled a difficult coworker. Put these all down into your toolbox, the story toolbox, right? So you need to have 8 to 10 stories in your toolbox, locked and loaded, right? So you have the ammunition, and then it's about firing them at the right time, right? You will be surprised to see how many behavioral questions your stories can fit into, right? One story can fit into so many different types of behavioral questions. So before an interview, read all the stories to refresh your memory and go for the interview, right? I'll be walking you all through a couple of examples as to how to use these stories. And also, an important thing to remember is that as you go higher up the ladder in your career, your stories need to be updated as well, right? Because the interviewer wants to know what you have accomplished in the recent past, right? Like the past of 3 to 5 years. So don't go back, don't go way back to, 10 to 15 years. Have recent stories, right? So what I'm trying to say is the story toolbox you will have when you are 30 years old should be different to the stories you had when you were 20 years old. Simple as that, right? So we will see how to use these stories in the next slides with examples. So this is what I want you all to do, right? And then let's move on to like some of the most common. I'll be discussing 3 very common behavioral type interview questions and how to approach them with the story toolbox strategy. What is your greatest strength? This is one of the definite interview questions. Why do interviewers ask this question? Very simply, they want to root for you, right? They want you to give them great things to note down so that they can recommend to hire you, right? So it's a time for the company to get a clear reason to hire you. And the most common mistake candidates do is you give a list of adjectives or descriptors. Like for example, you might say, I would say my greatest strength is my reliability. Whenever something is needed, my co-workers can count on me to deliver. I take a lot of pride in integrity, and I bring that into every role I have. There's no depth, right? There's no depth to that. You're just listing down a list of adjectives, descriptors, right? Reliability, detail oriented, self-starter, self-motivator. That's not the way to approach these questions. So how you should approach it is, name a strength that matches a key competency of the role you're applying for, right? Take a look at the job description and pay special attention to the skills that they require. That will help them, when you use one of those as a strength, and then when you back it up with a story, that will help the interviewer picture you in the role, right? So examples strengthen your answer, right? So I've given you all like two very good answers. Like, for example, first one, my greatest strength is mentoring my junior staff, right? That is your strength. Now back it up with a real life story. For example, when we hired an accounting intern who is very smart, I noticed that he was not checking his work, and that his work had many cosmetic errors and didn't follow our conventions. I took time to walk him through why it was important to always check his work before sending it to me or the manager, and I walked him through some of his work that I had to correct, which he definitely would have caught if he checked, and then showed him the final output after I made the changes so that he could see the standard of the work that we require. He understood how it took us significantly longer to get his workings up to a high standard. It took this extra time to guide him because I knew that simply asking him to change or check his work would not lead to the best result. This exercise we went through led to a lasting improvement in his work, and he performed really well and got a very good rating in his evaluation, right? You see what I'm saying? This answer has a lot of depth, right? You're, literally giving them a picture of how you work. The interviewer can picture you, giving feedback and mentoring junior staff. So if you're like a, fresh graduate, you can say, I've not given you all the full answer. You can build your own answer. A strength of mine is that I am calm and measured when things are hectic, such as I was the president of the Commerce Society in my school, and we organized the Commerce Day, and there was a mix-up with the event lineup, and we ran out of time and you can build your answer, right? Come up with a nice story, right? Come up with a nice story. That always adds color to your answer without just saying, I'm a self-starter, right? I'm a very motivated person, detail-oriented. Don't just list those down. Have a good skill, back it up, right? And if you don't have any prior work experience, no matter, right? If you have been in clubs and societies in your school, if you have done sports, right? Anything, come up with these stories and have those stories in your story toolbox. So you have the ammo. It's just about, shooting it at the right time. Flip side, what is your greatest weakness? A lot of companies ask this question at their interview. The most common answer that people give is, my greatest weakness is that I'm too detail oriented, or I have too much attention to detail, or I'm a workaholic, right? That's just boring. How can, tell me this, how can being detail oriented be a weakness of you? You're trying to disguise a strength as a weakness here, right? That's the oldest trick in the book. I know that, you know that, the interviewer knows that, the entire world knows that, and it's not gonna work, right? Like when I interview fresh, graduates for our internships, this is the most common answer I get. And, if he says that, I'm too detail oriented, too much attention to detail, I'm skeptical after that point onwards. Like, I won't cut him off, obviously, but I know that this guy's bluffing, right? So you don't just, say those, but at the same time, remember, don't go and say, I can't handle stressful situations. I don't work well with teams, right? You say something like that, you are done. Walk out of that interview room because you're not going to get that job, right? So you are walking on thin ice here. So how should you approach this question, right? You've got to be careful because these are like very tricky questions. First, name something that that's a work in progress, right? You aren't very good at. None of us are perfect, right? Everyone knows that. Describe how you have been working through it and building that skill and some results you've had, right? That shows self-awareness. And then always use a story to reinforce your answer, right? So I've given you all an example. About an year ago, my manager mentioned that she wanted me to be a bit more precise and detail oriented. And I thought a lot about this feedback and why she was saying it. What I realized is that I am a very action oriented person. I like to dive into projects and just start getting it done right away. What I saw is that I did not pause ahead of time and ask enough probing questions before I started an assignment. By not asking enough questions ahead of time, I didn't fully understand which details were the most important. Once I realized that, I've been practicing digging into why behind each assignment before beginning. It's different for me because I like to jump in and figure things out on my own. But I've been able to find the balance between asking the right questions and working independently. And I've seen dramatic improvements in the last year of me delivering exactly what my manager wants. This is a very good answer, a lot of depth, right? It shows that you can take some feedback, right? Some critical feedback. It shows that you are self-aware and, right? That's a perfect answer. Things like that, right? Always name something, that you're not very good at and how you're working towards it and the results where you are right now, and back it up with a story, right? Always use that story toolbox to strengthen your answer, right? This is another tricky question. Tell me a time you failed or you made a mistake. There is a specific reason for asking this question. We know that the interviewer knows that you are not perfect, and that's totally fine, right? So don't try to dodge the question. Don't get nervous, right? The company wants to see how you tackle the mistake you did, right? We all do mistakes. That's called being human, right? They want to see how you learn from those situations and how you handle it, right? That's what they're looking for, right? They want problem solvers, someone who takes accountability of their own actions without blaming others, right? And takes their mistakes or failures as a learning experience and grows from it, right? So again, don't try to like dodge the question, right? Look for a story from your past where it truly was a mistake, right? Or failure. And the most important part is, what did you learn from it and how did you rectify it, right? So how you should answer this is, tell what the problem was, right? Set the scene. What tasks were you working on and what went wrong and what was the impact? And then what action did you take, right? What did you do in response to your failure? What was your reaction? And the result. What was the lesson that you took away? What was the outcome? And how did this impact your future projects, right? So problem, action, result. Back it up with a story, right? Have a good story about a time you failed and how you reacted to it and what you learned from it. Have a strong story. So this is the way you should approach your behavioral questions. Don't just say, don't just give adjectives, descriptors. Have strong stories to each of your behavioral questions, right? Have about 10 and then go to the interview, whatever they ask, you can flip your stories and answer, and reinforce your answer, strengthen your answer with stories. All right, moving on to the third part of an interview, technical assessment or technical questions. So imagine this. You're absolutely crushing the behavioral type interview questions, right? And the questions about getting to know you. And then you get to a point in the interview where they are going to test you on your technical things. And then you start to get nervous. The thing is, like, unlike other questions, right? Most common interview questions, unlike those, technical questions can differ vastly based on the sector, seniority of the role, the company you're applying for, right? So there is no guarantee. Nobody in the world can say what type of technical questions you will get at an interview, right? So if you're going for an auditor position, an accountant role, a finance manager role, the technical questions are going to differ a lot, right? So that's the risk here, right? So one key thing to do is, this is an approach I take as well, go through the job description and job requirements thoroughly, right? As you're going through them, they will list things that they want you to be aware of, right? As you read through the role, you will know what you will have to perform on a day-to-day basis, right? And what systems they use. So get ready. There's no shortcut to this per se, right? Be prepared, because nobody can predict what technical questions you will be asked, right? And another tip that I can give you is, if you don't know the answer, if you don't know something, don't lie about it, right? Don't beat around the bush, and don't try to stumble your way through to something that you have no idea of. I mean, it's fine if you don't know, you don't know, right? Try to do your research, learn of all the technical things related to your role. But if you don't know, that's fine. Don't feel defeated, right? The instant you don't know something, just tell them, right? If you show defeat on your face and you get scared, that's not going to look good, right? Fine, right? You don't know, you move on to the next question, right? So do your research, know about the technical things. So I've given you all, some sample technical questions, but the questions might differ. It's very hard to frame questions, and depending on the role you're applying for as well. But if you're like a fresh graduate, it's going to an audit firm, it's rare that they will test you on technical things, but they might, right? So they can ask, what's the difference between accrual and cash accounting? How do you record depreciation in financial statements? Difference between assets, liabilities, and equity, right? What is the purpose of an audit? Can you explain the concept of materiality, internal controls, right? So on and so forth, right? How do you analyze companies' financial statements? And look at number 5. That's very important. Have you used, right, any accounting software? And if so, which ones? So they want to see whether the systems that you have used, right, match the systems they have. Obviously, there won't be 100% match, but even if you haven't used, just if they say they are using SAP or Oracle, just do a bit of research about the system and go, right? How they work, and the differences between the system that you currently use. When you tell them, that'll show that you have done your research as well. So this is the way to approach technical questions. Unfortunately, there's no shortcut that I can tell you. Be prepared, right? Depending on the role you're applying for. Last section. Questions to ask from the company. A very common reason that a candidate is not selected for a job is that they did not ask any questions. You need to ask several questions at the end of the interview, right? So those questions are a direct reflection of how interested you are in that opportunity and your ability to think critically as well, right? So you need to have at least 3 questions locked and loaded to be asked from the interviewer. So when they ask, do you have any questions for us? Don't say no. You should ask them several questions, right? And there are different types of questions that you can ask. First type of question you should ask is specifics about the role, right? Such as, what have been the biggest challenges for this role? You want to know, right? As you have applied for this role, you want to know what the main pain points are, right? And another great question is, what kind of additional responsibilities can be gained over time in this role, right? Ask these because you want to get an understanding of the situation you are walking into, right? This shows that you are focused on responsibilities. And the next one is another great question. Ask them, what do you want this role to accomplish in the first 90 days, right? These are all great questions that you can ask. The second type is you got to ask about the team. Some of the questions could be, what does the structure of the team look like, right? Who will I be working most closely with? Who would I be reporting to? What are the team members' work styles? Make sure that you get some clarity on the team that you're going to work with if you get selected, right? The third question you could ask is about the company. A great question for any situation is, what does it mean to be culture fit here? Or how does the work culture, how is the work culture of the company, right? And then you can ask, how has the company evolved over the recent past, right? What were the key milestones? You can ask them, right? Asking about the culture and the company shows that you are focusing on the things that matter the most to the employer as well, right? The culture and the company. And the fourth and the last type is that you can ask about the process, right? You can ask, if I get selected, what are my next steps? When should I expect to hear back about my next steps? And if I get selected, is there anything specific you would want me to look at prior to joining, right? So this is important. This part is very important because if you haven't heard back from them, this last type, right, asking questions about the process is really important because it will give you a date that you should follow up with them, right? You can, after a certain point, if they say it'll take a week for them to get back, after a week, if you don't hear anything from them, you can send an email, and say and ask, inquire about, what's happening, right? If you've been selected for the next round or if you've not been selected, you have the right to know, right? So these types of questions have, at least 3 to 4 questions locked and loaded. Never say that you don't have questions at the end of the interview, right? So that's about it in terms of all the sections of the interview and the tips I can give you. So I'll hand over the floor back to Buddhi, and if you all have any questions, I'm happy to answer. I think I've utilized my full 1 hour, but yeah, happy to answer any questions you all have.
Thank you, Niluka. For the benefit of everybody who joined late, it is my duty to introduce our presenter very briefly. So Niluka is a past finalist of AAT. He also holds a degree, a bachelor's, and he is currently residing in Canada, but he is also a visiting lecturer at a local university in Sri Lanka. He has been instrumental in the syllabus changes of some of the professional bodies in Sri Lanka. He is also a member of ACCA, and he has completed up to the 3rd level of CFA. So this is for the benefit of everyone who joined late. It is my duty to introduce our eminent speaker today. So Niluka, there is one question. One of the members would like to know, if they are asked questions about remuneration, how do we handle that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I didn't cover it because that depends on the level you're applying for, but always negotiate, right? You can say your expectation as well, and do your research about the market, based on the level that you have applied for. do your research. What's the current market rate, so that the compensation that you're asking for is not unrealistic and not too low as well. Based on that, set your expectation and negotiate with them, right? Don't ask for too much, and don't go for, even if you're desperate, don't go for like a too low value as well. Know your worth.
All right. One last question. This comes from, I believe, the emotional side of an interviewee. If you are facing, let's say, the third interview, Niluka, and it's been an emotional day for personal reasons, a parent is sick, somebody has passed away, and you are definitely in a nervous mood. So what is your advice? Should we start the interview by saying, please excuse me, my nerves are out of sorts, or should we end it as strongly as we can and then at the end of it disclose the situation? Or what would you suggest?
First, if an unavoidable circumstances occur, you can always request for a rescheduling of your interview, right? That is one of the best things that you can do, so that you'll have some time to calm down and go. If you cannot reschedule it, go for it, right? Give your best, but at the end, yeah, there's no harm in mentioning you had this unforeseen circumstance, and but I mean, depends on the interviewer, right? Whether they'll take into account about the situation you faced. That's up to the interviewer, but there's no harm in mentioning. You can do it, but if possible, try to inform the company and reschedule it. Most corporates are very flexible, right? If you're running late, or if you faced with some difficult situation, you can always reschedule your interview.
All right. So thank you, Niluka, for your precious time that you have spent. And I believe everybody who attended has praised, and they are asking for a presentation, obviously, because they have found great value in each and every word that you have shared with us, and each and every point that you have presented to us on screen. So thank you also for agreeing to share the presentation, because I'm sure all of us could keep it and then, go through it just before we prepare for our interviews. So as we come to the end of a valuable session, I thank you once again on behalf of the AAT, the president, the CEO, the council members, as well as the conference committee who was instrumental in organizing this. Niluka, thank you so much for agreeing to be with us. Your precious time has definitely added so much to our insights, and AAT basically holds accounting technicians, and soft skills development is crucial for us. So thank you. And I would also like to thank the technical committee, that is the technical crew at the AAT office who has been handling this webinar. Thank you, Harshani and the team, for all your hard work, Chatura, behind the screens. And thank you for the committee members who have joined in. And last but not least, our valued AAT members, past finalists, and students. Thank you for being with us. A link will be shared now, so you would need to mark your attendance on that link. Thank you, and hope to see all of you once again in a month. Thank you, Niluka, and good night from Sri Lanka.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thanks. See you in future as well. Yeah.